In this episode, the dorks are talking about AI, how we're using it, when we're using it, and how the industry is adapting to it. And we ask ourselves, is it really artificial intelligence or just a large language model dressed up to look that way? It was an interesting conversation, and this time it was just the dorks. So sit back, grab a drink, and enjoy our AI episode.
And we're live, episode 79, AIing around with the dorks. That's right. We're just going to AI around. It's just the four of us. We're going to have cocktails. We're going to throw out what we can and hopefully a good argument, because I don't know about you, but I'm fired up. Just excited to sit down with you guys. It's been too long without the four of us. No offense to all our guests, we love all of you, but back at our roots, this whole thing started out with bourbon and an idea to dork out. So why not get back to those roots? I know it looks like, Travis, I could see something floating around in there. So and obviously I showed mine, but I'll wait till the end. What you got today?
So I am breaking with tradition a little bit in that it is usually bourbon for me, but I'm also like 1/8 Irish, and it happens to be St. Patty's Day this weekend. So I have some Jameson Black Barrel. It's really, really good.
I had to. I'm the same reason, man. I'm like, you have to get the Black Barrel. This is the best Jameson there is.
Speaking of AI,
a long shot.
Good grief. That's right.
Speaking of AI,
We're in a simulation. This is a simulation. Forget
it. This is just Travis and Jonathan's world, and we're just living in it, guys.
Right.
So I take it, Jonathan, you have the same thing then in your glass?
I absolutely do, man. And it's like my pick for Irish whiskey that's affordable. Like Redbreast is better, but like you can't afford it. And this is beautiful whiskey for it. I mean, it if you're a bourbon drinker that doesn't like Irish whiskey, you'll still like Black Barrel.
I was just gonna say, if you're a bourbon drinker, this is as close to an Irish that you're gonna get for an Irish whiskey.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that one. That's one I'm not familiar with. So I think I'm gonna have to try that one. Maybe go out, because you're right. We do got St. Patty's Day. Now, Trent, I think you're still on the push, right? So
yeah. So just water for me. But today's day 65. So of this year's 75 hard. So I think next time we record, I should be in the clear. I've got 10 more days, 11 more. Yeah. So we'll not long yet. We definitely won't record again before then. Good. So this will probably be the last one.
I was gonna say, us. We're not.
You're looking kind of gaunt and thirsty. Like you could use a nice.
It's been a minute, right? Out. Yeah. It's like all kind of piling up. So I'm almost like afraid of the end of it. I'm like almost afraid of myself. You know, you kind of like get that like level of anxiety when you get released to the wild like that. You're like, what am I gonna do?
You just got to put some training wheels on and take it easy getting out there.
Yeah. So today concludes day 65. So
well, that's awesome. And just think, you don't have MEP innovations to come right out of into, which is probably a good thing, right? In the end, like none of those conferences to come out. You got time to kind of ease it back in if you want, do what you want with it. I like
Although I'll tell you, you're like in the conference scene. The whole sobriety thing at a conference kind of turns you into Superman of productivity when you're at like you wake up, hit the gym, like get all your emails fired away. And then when you join everybody at breakfast at 8 a.m. and everybody's wondering like how you got all your work done, you're like, yeah, literally the only difference was I just didn't drink all night with you, you know? Like, yeah. So
I have to say,
there is a level of kind of life hack to it at times, but yeah, I definitely miss being able to sit here on a cast and enjoy one, especially over AI. I feel like this would have been the perfect one to drink because, you know, I'm just not sold on all this stuff. It would have been a pretty good
one. I was glad. Just so you guys know, we had to rope and move a little around, because I think it's going to be, you know, there's two of us in the anti over here. So I'm going to jump in. I actually, for the occasion, made an actual old fashioned with Woodford.
Oh, nice.
because I was just feeling it. And I'm with you, Trent. Last fall doing the entire conference circuit training for Ironman, it's amazing the amount of hours I got back in my day. So that might
Yeah,
be something I do for
it
conference
is a
season.
huge. It really is. It does teach you that you fire on a lot more cylinders when you can shut that out at the right moments. But
But is life really worth living at that
Without
point?
bourbon, not really. No.
well, due to AI, we won't have long.
Yeah. So
So it's
pretty
really not.
soon,
Yeah,
pretty soon we're just gonna float around and imagine anything we want and just have it on our
Right.
tongues, right? That's how life's gonna go.
Yeah.
yeah,
So who
and it
wants
won't
to
matter.
kick off this crazy AI thing? I
I,
go ahead.
I think we should actually kick it off kind of with you, Jeff, and kind of with something that happened at the very beginning of the large language models. And it has to do with our friends over at Document Crunch. And someone came on and they're like, oh, this is the end of all of these other forms of sort of advanced search. All right. Because to a certain extent, up until these large language models, we already had advanced search. And we had, like, I got to say, I still liked what Data was doing, and Data was not using
Mm,
any AI. Data
Mhm.
was doing a fantastic job getting to the documents, getting the pictures, getting the things I want based on functions, you know, and not using or leveraging these large language models. And when they came out, I think everybody kind of climbed Mount Stupid about as fast as they could, and it was like, this is the best thing ever. And you guys said there's two haters. I work it with it, and I worked with it today a little bit leading into the episode. And every time I work with it, I'm somewhat disappointed. Like, it's good for
Yeah.
some things, but a lot of times it's a little disappointing. So Jeff, you kind of pushed back when
Mhm.
you saw that, because what the statement was these non large language model software, that's the end of them, and
Yeah.
these little point solutions, it's kind of the end of them. And that, in theory, that was almost 12 months ago, right?
Mhm.
That was like a year ago. Like, they're all supposed to be dead by
Mhm.
now. This is like Al
Mhm.
Gore's global warming threats from 7 years ago, or however, 2 decades ago, 30 years ago, probably. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So what made you instantly think that you should push back against that idea?
Um, I wish I could say like I had some sort of large language model thought process or something, but for me, it actually goes to something a little bit more fundamental. You can't beat the hype cycle, right? The Gartner hype cycle is a thing. It's a real thing, and let's be honest. I mean, I came by. I shaved this down a little bit so y'all can't see it as well, but it is real gray. And I came about that gray by riding that hype cycle and being the hype machine and just overdoing it. And it just almost never goes that way, right? We are always going to go through the height of inflated expectations. I think the difference in AI, especially the large language model move, was the number of really quick wins that seemed to work well. And that was the whole argument. Like, it was Josh Levy at Document Crunch, Jake Olson, me, a few other people, and I just had to say, like, whoa, stop. Like, there is a reality to the hype cycle. Everything won't be dead and everything won't be sunshine and roses. It will be something in the middle. And
Yeah.
and that's sort of where I went with it. I wish it was because I had a good technical background on it, but it's not. It's actually more about a social background and an understanding of that these cycles in technology almost always run this way. Now, I'll be honest, like, I'm not a hater. Never have been, never will be. I would call myself a technical technology realist. Like, in reality, it has powerful functions. I think, Jonathan, it was you and I talking that you opened my eyes to what I'm now just seeing surface is after dealt with the hype cycle yourself and then got into the reality cycle, you started to say how it was going to change search and how it was going to change the way we interact with the amount of information in our world. And I'm starting to believe you on that side, that that is truly the power, just one of the powerful pieces. And it's going to be powerfully transformative, but just not like the whole world's not going to come to an end because OpenAI
Yeah.
released ChatGPT, right?
Right, right.
It's just not.
Yeah,
And I
Jeff.
completely agree with you that I think that history has shown, in this, a lot of it is from my own personal experience too, is like it's never it's never the end all be all, it's never the worst thing ever, right? It always ends up somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where we're going to see it going. And I completely agree with what you're saying too with Jonathan's. It's going to change search, especially early on, accessing large amounts of information quickly and digesting it, like, just like um, just like YouTube and TikTok has completely changed the way the younger generation is searching for things, finding information, learning how to do things. Chat's going to continue to do the same thing. Is just boil down boil down information for people in a different modality
Yeah.
than typical search.
Before we jump through that, Jonathan, can you explain what your thought is on that one? Like how you see it transforming that piece? Because your way you explained it to me really made a whole lot of sense.
The reason I see it changing that piece is because we've always been storing things sort of randomly. And now the way that these engines work, they work on these vector databases that sort of, they build out context to the information that's put in them. So you put in information and it's building context. It's building these like lines of thoughts. Imagine like going down the rabbit hole, all right? It's building this vector that's going down the rabbit hole. So when you ask to search for something, it automatically says, oh, well, here's all of the adjacent stuff. I wonder if the adjacent stuff is going to be relevant to what you're searching. And it usually is. So like a lot of the reason that I talked about search is the more I deal with it, the more it feels that way. And the more I read about like vector databases and how they work and how they retrieve the data, I was like, all right, I was actually surprised they don't do it more for graphics engines already. Because I mean, it's amazingly fast, and it's amazingly powerful, but it's also not quite as supernatural as perhaps the AIs have been portrayed. Trent,
Well,
what's your thought, man? Walking in.
Well, I mean, from the beginning, I mean, and my background coming uh from psychological operations, coming from like a tactical marketing field. I was willing to let the dust settle a little bit. I mean, I just think that, like Jeff said, the hype and I mean, I knew that this was more than it really was, But I mean, when you listen to people who are pushing product and doing, I mean, it's like, yeah, that, kind of telling you the world. And um, there's definitely a lot of ways that this is going to change our lives, but I just am not sold that it's going to be quite to the levels that people are kind of fantasizing right now. I think I'm willing to let it cool off. There's a lot of things that even I'm looking at, to improve some of the ways that I run my teams and business, and but I'm even careful how far I take it. I just and I'm assuming we're talking more about the large language models here. I don't, because I
Yeah.
honestly like kind of want to even start off with, you know, is an LLM really AI? Like, can we start with that debate? Like, what's
What
AI?
defines?
I mean, I
well, yeah. I mean, I think if you look at it that way, I was going to say something to Jonathan's point too, of like getting into video, and I don't want to. I'll tease a little bit that there's going to be a little bit of a Dorks contact crew crossover that's going to touch on the article that I'm going to share there. But I listened to a podcast that was uh, with an AI pioneer that really broke a lot of things down for me. And the large language models, they're really a predictive model. That's how it gets to
Mhm.
what it's doing. It's trying you ask it a prompt and it's trying to start to string together its response by predicting what it thinks that next word in that response is going to be. And that's why it is getting better, but that's why in the video and image realm it hasn't quite gotten there, right? Because now it's trying to predict what the next pixel is going to be. And that has it's had some interesting results, a lot of nine fingered hands and so, some other things, but
6 usually, I
it,
think that's
but yeah, it is getting closer. But so to your point, Trent, is like, is that really artificial intelligence? The gentleman that was speaking on this podcast pointed out that a lot of these LLMs have passed the Turing test, but basically maybe the Turing test wasn't the right test. Like maybe they needed to change that.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, John.
the magic's that like with the scaling, right? So like back in like
Mhm.
2000 to like do the background dork thing back in the 2016, I think it was, they came up with sort of the basic structure that they're using now to build tokens and to save the
Mhm.
data and to look back at it. And it really wasn't that magical. It was around for a long time. And then they started scaling up the processing power. And it was kind of like building a bigger brain on top of a lot of these models. And then they started to get a little bit spooky, right? And I don't think like everything that I read says that AGI or artificial general intelligence is like still 20 years off, you know, and that's where it's really AI and not just I hate to say like a really really developed echo chamber, but it's a really developed echo chamber. Like
right.
we're not getting anything new. I love the
Yeah.
photos, like you were saying, Travis. I made some backgrounds for like my little personal website on mushrooms, and I'm looking through, and they're so formulaic. It's you can almost see it's like a formulaic way of laying out
Right.
art and design, and you end up with like little mushes where the formula went wrong, like where the fingers are extra, or they'll just have a
Mhm.
blob of something in the middle of nowhere because the formula says you need something there, and I think it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I want to
My
interject
Impressive
a
tech.
quick
go.
a quick producer's note that Jonathan wasn't on mushrooms. His website is about mushrooms.
Oh,
Yeah.
about mushrooms. Yeah. Culinary mushrooms.
Very true.
Culinary
Right.
mushrooms.
I was going to say the
Culinary
same.
mushrooms, man.
But
Like
also,
going out
but also
and
on
But also
culinary.
on mushrooms.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, producer note here. He meant
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
literally
Yes.
that. Yeah.
He was
I
literally
don't
on
even think of
mushrooms.
those
I
things.
think,
That's just you
guys,
guys.
it's impressive tech, and
Yeah.
what you can do with some of the open AI stuff is really neat. But I just have a hard time calling it AI today, and I guess I would really need someone to convince me that I'm wrong there. But um, yeah, I mean, look, AI is the buzzword right now. It's almost like in the tech world right now. If you want fun, if you want money, if you
Mhm.
want people to pay attention to you, you have to have like some AI story in your stack, or in your deck. And I think it's kind of a reach to say that some of what people are doing with this is AI. I mean, it's more for the story. I hate to That's kind of my, let the dust settle
Right.
moment. It's going to change the way I do things, and it's going to change the way we all do things. But I think maybe take a step back and kind of let some of this play out. If you're, I don't think we all have to kind of jump in head first after this. And I mean, unless you really are just chasing the dollar, and you want to get money off of a story, then I guess there's a play there.
Well, I think you're right, Trent. It goes back to what we see a lot, right? The swinging of the pendulum to talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. I'll go to blockchain, right? Like,
Yeah,
how
same
many of
thing.
you have a visceral reaction to blockchain and what it could do?
How many of you do a damn thing with it now?
Yep.
Right.
Almost none of you. Well, there's a lot of people out there on the Bitcoin side of things. I get
Right.
it, and crypto,
Understood. But
but
yeah.
y'all are a bit crazy. However, like blockchain hasn't reached where it is going to have like a very impactful piece, but it'll be when you don't talk about it, right? Like this, I wish I could get this analogy right, and this is hilarious. I probably should put it through ChatGPT to create it for me. Is that when you read these software taglines and they keep saying AI, it's like me talking about taking my car to go to the grocery store and mentioning the gasoline. And then I went to the school to pick up my kids and it was powered by gasoline. And then I went here and it was powered by gasoline. And you're like, now we're just like, yeah, we put that stuff in our car all the time we go. And even, yeah, we kind of mention EV, but you're like, does everybody who has a Tesla really say like, I had electricity and drove down the road? Maybe a little bit. And they did when it first came out, right? Same hype cycle.
Yes.
It's not about the fuel. It's about the destination, the journey, what it empowers you to do. And this is where I want to spin this. This is funny because I'm going the other way with this. It's truly transformative in our ability to iterate, create things in a faster, more consistent manner is where the tangible impacts, certain tangible impacts, right? I
So
know
you're
you've
saying
seen
it's
this,
going
John.
to be AI because we're saying it's AI. We're going to push it to true.
No, we're not going to talk about it. People are truly using it in building software, in augmenting their solutions to get to places faster than they were before, which we've seen with a ton of technology, right? Processing power did the same thing. Graphic quality did the same thing. There's a number of places where we can relate back to what it did in history for us. This is going to be one of those. I do think it's going to be a pretty heavy accelerant, though. I mean,
But I mean, I'm building one for ASC manufacturing, and what it's doing is it's building a pattern recognition that I could never accomplish with functions alone. So for me to accomplish what it's going to accomplish with me labeling documents and it self-reinforcing learning and building the tokenization and all of that sort of architecture, I don't know that I could build that with functions. So I really see it as opening it up a new area for us to sort of build technology in. But more than that, like, Trent, you're always talking about the force multiplier. I think for people that are naturally techie, this is like the best force multiplier you ever had. This morning, I wanted to do a bunch of stuff, and I wanted to strip a bunch of our YouTube videos. All right. But instead of going there and copy pasting, I went in and said, can you write me a Python script to do this? No, that's not quite right. No, that's not quite right. Okay, can you add them together? Can you do that? There's for people that have a little bit of programming skill, you're now going to be able to accomplish a lot more. And as you're doing it, you're learning from it. I mean, I've learned more about programming from it than I have from taking a class on Udemy or in those other things.
Yeah.
So I feel like that it does really well. I think it also makes people perhaps a little over optimistic about what can be done.
Yes.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
you pointed out there one of the things that's really important is the way that you were talking about how that's not quite right. That's not quite right. Like that there I don't remember if it was one of the podcasts I listened to. I think it was maybe Freakonomics. Like you're starting to be able to make 500 grand a year as a prompt engineer, right? Because the people that do well with it know how to speak to it, how to ask the right questions, right? And that's for as long as that lasts, that's the people that, like, to your point, Jonathan, like you're able to get ahead because I'm trying to find this LinkedIn post from
You game
Darren
the
Young, the way
system, right? I mean,
you treat it like a really smart intern that you're not quite sure you can trust yet, and that you kind of have to keep nudging along, right?
well, I want to challenge you there because don't treat it like an intern. Treat it like a machine because it has no feelings and it doesn't
Well,
care.
right.
Yeah, well, I mean
Well,
that's the key though.
I
yes.
can stick an intern in a closet too, but
Yeah, I know, but that's really inhumane. And what's great is like you can't hurt the feelings of the AI, and that's
Not
one of
right,
the
yet.
right.
powers of it. But Jonathan,
Not
I
yet.
want to go to your point. Well, actually, never mind. Some of them feel like they have feelings. They don't really. They're just taught that by a bunch of crazy people that feed them a lot of
Right.
stuff,
Because
which is
once again,
another.
not AI. It was
Yeah,
told to
it was
be.
told to feel that way by a whole bunch of crazy people, which, by the way, is
That,
one of the scary parts. But
that said,
um,
though, man, if you ask it a question nicely versus ask it a question not nicely, it's literally going to a different area of its memory to pull that data.
I do
Really
like that.
freaky.
Yes, but asking them direct questions, whereas you might put some
Yes.
niceties and other things aren't necessarily necessary. Did I say that way? But Jonathan, to your point, like historically, and this is why I was like kind of the contrarian in the beginning, because historically, this is no different than every other innovation in coding that we've seen over time, right? Because we used to have to write freaking everything from the beginning, drop down menus, clicks, buttons. And then they were like, oh no, we have a code repository for you. Here's the drop down. Now just put your stuff in there. Here's the buttons. It's just the advancement of that at an all new level. And I think we've been seeing this for years. This is part of the progression. I mean, I can't write code really that well at all. I learned PowerShell for the exact same reason. I wish I had ChatGPT back then to ask it to go find me these things and then could read through it and fix it. I had to learn it. There still has to be a human that's going, nope, no, yes, no, that's the output I want, etc., to get to this end. But we have lots of examples of it. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm not downplaying the function. I mean, I'm just not ready to call it AI, but I still find a lot of use for what OpenAI or what these LLMs can bring to the table. I mean, I I got really interested just, even for my business, even thinking about at the service desk level. I know on the All In podcast, they talked about what Klarna did with OpenAI's technology to basically scale their service desk and use it as like the kind of the tier one solution
Mhm.
to a service level query, right? Um, and the studies all pointed that it was, like the satisfaction rates of the answer were on par with the human one and this and that. And I mean, look, it all has my attention. I'm not ready to completely throw all of that as my tier one solution to the service desk for my business.
Well, right,
I'm letting the dust
because it's
settle. I'm letting the hype kind of do its thing, but the ears are open. I'm interested. I'm not ready to
it,
put the company to that just yet. But
right.
yeah,
It's also past bar exams, right? But you're not going to want it to represent you in court because you want something that can reason, that can have strategy, that can pre-plan, and all that stuff is it's not there.
No, but it was cool
No.
is if you're getting ready for that, Travis, if you're getting ready to go into court, it can actually use historical, like,
It can help you build your argument for sure,
yeah,
right?
build your argument. It can come back and forth with you. You can argue with it in your mind and allow it to sharpen your skills. That's again, a useful case for it.
but we have to
It
look
can,
inward first and think, well, is our internal documentation good enough to fuel what this is doing right now? I mean, look, there's a lot of things. I mean, so you know, uh,
Right.
a tier one SD operator might have knowledge that hasn't even been documented yet. Too. I mean, there's a lot of things that we got to figure out. But I think that the tech is moving in the direction where that tier ones. When I talk about like the low stage question answer, like the um, we're probably closing in on some kind of solution for stuff like that, as long as it's not a super technical, super unique uh, question or query from somebody. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things that have to be in place, and I guess step one was our business even ready to accept that as an employee? Like, if I'm going to hire an LLM to do the job of somebody at that level, do I even have my internal documentation ready? Because once again, it's not AI. It's not going
Right.
to learn how to answer questions around my product. I've still have to document and give it something to actually base those responses on. So,
And I think people get a misconception that the more data you give it, the better it's going to do, and it's
mm,
not necessarily true, because if your data is inconsistent, is contradictory, all of that. Like, I built the mini AIs, which you can, or the mini Chat GPTs, which you can do really quick, and they limit how much data you can put in them, because they know if you put too much data, it's not going to give you good responses, because you're going to give it contradictory data. And when you're
Right.
labeling,
Well, that
which is
goes
like
back
the
to
way you
the
train one, you have to make absolutely sure you don't ever say that B is A and B is also C and B is also
yeah.
D. Because
If I
once you
train a
say
new
that, you're kind of
employee,
poisoning it.
do,
Yes.
do I train my new employee with every possible wrong answer to everything? It's like, how do you, I mean,
Mhm.
there's like a lot of Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and there's also a lot of it that I don't even understand yet. I mean, it's still new to me like it is to everybody else, but uh I have my sights on it. I'm just not ready to change my department or my business around, just yet. I think I'm slow playing it. I'm optimistic in what it can do, but I'm not the guy
But
that's gonna jump head
there's
first.
enough people that, and there's enough people working on it and utilizing things that, but that it is something that, from an association level, that we've been asked to look into and be concerned about, because the rate of cybersecurity incidents, ransomware, all this stuff keeps getting churned out faster and faster and faster, especially using these LLMs, and now with the, like it, like us, we've put plenty of audio out on the internet. Like there's potential there that you could receive a phone call from Jonathan Marsh saying like, "Hey, I've been
Won't buy
hacked.
mushrooms.
Go buy mushrooms." So I mean, so yeah, trying to educate everybody on,
Well, that's
it,
going to be
it's
the fun
but
part. That's
right.
going to be the fun part. No, is that actually there are many ways that we've seen now some of the good guys using AI and deep fake technology to amplify security and think differently than they would have thought. It's real hard for a white, somebody who's a white hat hacker, somebody who's on the good side, to think like the dark side. Well, the large language models don't have that problem, so they can
Right.
think that way. Also, I heard of a couple of companies that are using large language models to search the dark web.
Mhm.
That was something we couldn't do before.
Hmm.
Right.
And so, as fast as they're coming out with it, I think it's also an antidote. So, this is a cool arms race on that respect, because you're also seeing, like, we're not going to get into politics, but it is an election year. So
Yes.
in an election year, this technology is and it couldn't be a worse year for this technology to hit the world. I'll just say that flat out, and I'm not going to go where I lean or anything. I'm just going to say there couldn't be a worse time. It is the
Well,
optimal time for someone to come up with an ability to catch this and call it out fast.
yeah.
Because like you said, Jonathan's now calling my grandmother and telling her, that I need money because I just got caught in Taiwan and need to get out. And it's Jonathan's voice because of a recording that we're doing
Mhm.
right now. And I'm scared to death in some respects because, I mean, more than most of y'all would like it, my voice is out there a lot. So it's not hard.
Oh, and they don't need much. They don't need much voice at
No.
all in order to get
Right.
you. But I really that I think what's bothering me about that is as simple as, when we started seeing people edit all their pictures, when every picture that you ever saw of somebody looked something edited, and Apple's all happy that you can take people out of the background, and I'm like, you're creating a world that doesn't exist and a bunch of people that don't actually exist, man.
Mhm.
Uh, to go back to my famous mushrooms, I had a guy named Fungi Punk in Europe. All right, and we're sharing pictures. No, no, it's cool.
He
We're
sounds
sharing
like a
pictures.
fun guy. There's a
He
joke there,
is.
right? Yeah.
But
He's
where's your
kick
drum
ass.
set?
Ah, hang
He's
on.
kick
Yeah.
ass. But he asked me, and this was years and years and years ago. He goes, "Hey, did you notice that a lot of these mushrooms don't have any holes in them or any bugs on them?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. I don't know where they're looking." He's like, "They're not looking anywhere." It's like they're fixing all their photos. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, the woods is someplace that doesn't have bugs, and that I feel that there's a Vaseline that this is putting over so much that's very disturbing to me.
Wait. So we can go right to the mushrooms and the code. The mushrooms with no bugs, the code with no bugs.
That's
Those
right.
things don't exist.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is the definition of software. There is
Yeah.
zero software with zero bugs. It does not exist. It is the definition. Same, I would argue, unless you're growing your mushrooms in a internal closed environment, they're gonna have bugs, man. That's the reality.
That got deep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
I don't know where to
And
take it
that's
from
what
there.
we do on the Dorks. We go deep into the technology, into the reality. That's the fun part of this. I mean, it
Well,
is kind of I gotta say, this like I feel like a large weight coming off the shoulders of just getting out into the reality of AI. I'm interested, Travis, in where you're headed next with it.
well, I was going to say, kind of bringing it back to reality. I mentioned earlier, Darren Young's had made a post on LinkedIn. I thought was pretty profound, where basically what it boiled down to is the fact that, and to your statement earlier, Trent, about AI being in everything. Like, the fear now is softwares that we rely on are going to be ignored because everybody's throwing everything into building AI into their software. And in his opening statement was, in many ways, AI will be the worst thing to ever happen to software. Boom.
Maybe, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. That's hard to.
You got a lot
Um,
of amateurs that are going to write some pretty serious software with that thing too. And that's dangerous. Like people
yeah,
that,
it levels the
you
playing
know,
field a little bit, right? I mean, maybe there's an
yeah,
opportunity where it kind of. I mean, look, let's not make any even kind of referencing earlier. Jeff, where you talked about like the election year and the cycle where talking about deep fakes and doing this and that, but let's not pretend that like none of that existed before.
Yeah.
If anything, it's just more
Right.
mainstream now.
Uh-huh.
So
They can
I
shit it out faster now.
yeah, I mean, so even
yeah.
like the idea of a large language model is not a 2023 invention or 2020 or whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
it's something that's been around for a long time. It's I just think it's more mainstream and it's more available, and what OpenAI is doing, kind of the open source of it to the public and stuff like that, is kind of the only thing that's really changed. I have a feeling
Well,
rich governments and other have had access to very similar technology for a while now. It's just hasn't been like an open source, open to the public thing. So, um,
I does
yeah.
make me feel better that in order to get to artificial general intelligence, you're going to have a large footprint of mechanics. Like you're going to have a large data set or a physically large space, like not small,
Which
like
we are building
insanely
that. I
large,
We're
mean,
taking a
we're
large
building a
amount
lot
of
of
data. Yeah,
look at the data
Well,
but
centers.
like you can't build
quantum
it in your
now.
closet, you know?
quantum
Quantum
computing.
computing. Quantum
Quantum
computing.
computing. I
Yep,
mean, that is the
exactly.
thing about, like, Jonathan just realized when I started on the crew 10 years ago, we talked about 50 years before general AI. This is not some new idea. And it's cut to 20. And that cut to 20 is more about quantum computing and our ability to keep moving things forward. Look at what
Yeah.
NVIDIA and others are doing. Like we are gonna accelerate the pace. And I can't believe I'm about to go the other way here. But Darren is the trough of disillusionment, right? Like Darren lives in the trough of disillusionment. I love him, but he lives
He's
down
the
in that
king
trough of
mayor.
yeah, a king mayor and sole proprietor of the trough of disillusionment. It's going to be neither, right? It's not the height of expected or inflated expectations, nor the trough of disillusionment. There is a path to productivity that this will continue to bring us and continue to truly transform the way we see software, like lots of other things have. That's my caveat to it, is that it is like that. And it will come in so many different ways. I mean, we're sitting here talking about large language models because they're the hot topic, but like computer vision is huge.
Yep.
Image recognition and the capabilities and the things that it can provide us as a society, as an industry. It's amazing what it can do. If you think about, we had Urban Machine on the content crew, and we've had I can't remember the other one's name right now, but basically you could use their computer vision to watch prefabricated materials come through a shop, and the computer vision can measure and make sure and do QA/QC on them as they pass through the line without a human.
Yeah.
And these are huge powers that we need and that will move us forward. It's Marty Beard, and I'm sorry, Marty, I can't remember the name of your company right now.
Y- I use NLMs too. Like, I mean, we're not just using large language models. You know what I thought was weird? We had Melvin Newman on. He gave a great explanation of AI, and you can go
Mhm.
back and see that episode. He comes to me, we're talking about some other stuff. He says, John, I had this AI that was really over the top at reading PDFs and building estimates. He said, I had to shelve it because everybody was afraid of what it was doing. I had to dumb it down. I've heard this from many people. And now I think the biggest change he's seen is the attitude. Whether or not there's fear, there's also a lot of interest. So now he can take those things off the shelf and start using them. And like you said, I mean, I think it goes back to Trent's point of what is AI,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of learning models. Language models aren't the only ones, and that architecture is not the only thing. It's just honestly, it's the most interesting. I do have a question for I think I'm going to start with Travis because I know you've been messing too. Like, what are you using ChatGPT best for? Like, what do you like of the things that it does? What's the thing that you're like, hey man, of all those things, this is what it helps me the most with?
I would say that in a warning to teachers or anybody that gets a proposal or a request for a proposal from me, I'm using it to get a first draft of different things that I'm writing about. And that's that's my biggest use. The second one is we alluded to it earlier. It's like a smarter search, a different search. And I do bounce around between the different products out there. GPT right now is my kind of my favorite for drafting things, but I'll use the and it's still same product, but it's built the Microsoft what's that one called?
Copilot.
Copilot. That's kind of my more expanded search. And then actually one of the things I love to do is to GTP over GPT. One of my favorite things to do is to take these different documents and paste them into each other and kind of just say like, hey, Gemini or Bard said this. What do you think? And just kind of go back and forth and then mold that into whatever it is I'm going to end up producing. Because I still have to put my own voice into it. I'm still that old school enough. Like it still has to sound like and feel like it's coming from me. But at least it gets me started.
Yeah.
How about you, Sample?
I like that one, Travis, because that's where it's been the reality for me. Is I'm much more of an order, and what you can do is talk and then put it in and get more out of it from that perspective. I've also used a little bit of some of the kind of walled off versions where you can load things in and do other things with it. So, truth be told, I'm not going to mention where, but I've been using it to manage NDAs. Right? That is something I
Mhm.
just don't have the language around and don't understand. And so need help looking for the areas in which it can point out things to me. And then okay, he just walked in, so I don't want to say it too loud cuz my son just walked in cuz he's 15. I don't understand the geometry and the algebra that these kids are doing today. I know I learned it at some point, guys. I do. And I know these formulas. At least I did at some point. But today I don't. So I have to go help my son. And he's like, hey, I'm working on the XYZ. And I'm like, I don't know. Hey, ChatGPT, what's the XYZ? And it gives me the whole thing back. And I'm like, okay, how do you solve this? And give me the details. And it gives me the steps. And then I can go into it and go, oh, okay. And then I sit down with him and I'm like, well, when I was in school, they didn't have ChatGPT, so I'll just use this. So in all honesty, it's been augmenting my abilities to do some of that stuff. Like I know the answer when it comes back. Jonathan, to your point with code before, like I know I can look at it and go, I don't think that's right. Can you fix that? And so that's sort of where I'm using it. I'm interested now, Trent, where are you using it? Oh wait, you're that way.
A lot of similar use cases. I mean, I think that there's a really big play on my end to give me. I've used it to draft correspondence for things that you know it's a fast paced world, and maybe and you brought up legal, Jeff. You brought that up as something too. I think that something like this has a really a really unique ability to kind of give someone like me the ability to put lawyer speak into things, to put, I mean, like there's ways to initiate correspondence in a way that I'm not traditionally trained on, right? I mean,
Mhm.
if you want a paper written by a plumber, I got you all day long, right? But if I have to draft something legal, or, and I've used it for to help me with job descriptions. I've used it to help me maybe even draft legal documents internally, for employees and stuff, like,
Mhm.
policy letters, hey, I just absorbed this department, and I need to kind of revamp. Maybe it's a department that has some old policy letters, some old stuff that hasn't been updated in years. Yeah, I'll, well, I know I need to write a new policy statement for this department that I'm now in charge of. I'm gonna let it help me do stuff like that. I might plug in what my internal core values are, and what is my department trying to solve, this and that, and it'll give me a really nice letter of all the things that I have decided that my department's going to be all about. Ways like that. I just think a really gifted way to word my thoughts and kind of my beliefs and my structures. All of that is internal, but maybe I don't have a great way at presenting it in paragraph form all the time, or a way that I could do that in minutes instead of hours.
Right.
Well, that's the
So
thing.
so
It's like a
John, you're
much
using it to
better
write code for
typewriter.
all of your. Yeah. Sorry.
I actually will tell you, I'm using it a lot because I'm dyslexic. So if you have a problem with written language, this is this is a panacea in some ways. It is kind of a cure-all because, like, Grammarly, way more smarter than it ever was before, and is now working better. Voice to
Mhm.
text, way
Mhm.
smarter than it was, always working better. And
Yeah.
I struggle to type letter by letter everything because I transpose and
Yeah, he
can't
does.
even.
I
And
can vouch for it.
Yeah, he
yeah,
does. I was just gonna say, if you ever got
and
an email from if you get a email from John and he says pancreas, he means panacea.
Yeah.
yeah. But
That's
but
pretty
yeah,
funny.
for people like me, this is a lifesaver. I mean,
Well,
I can now, like, zero drafts. I do a zero draft, and then I swing back through and edit it. And I took the time to, because I have so much that's written. I can put it in my own voice now almost, and
Mhm.
I view it as a better typewriter. Like, you can say it's copying from this person or that person, and I get that, and you could do that, but it's not going to sound like you. What you can do is make it sound like you, and then help it to make you communicate better the points you're trying to get across. And I love that.
well,
Really
that's
do.
the true power of it, John, is that,
Mhm.
like, it can level the playing field for people whose minds work differently, right? People's and I have a daughter and a son whose minds work differently, and this is where I see the power of what it can do to level the playing field of communication. We base so much of intelligence on our ability to communicate those intelligence, and none of us who communicate with you on a regular basis would ever question your intelligence. You're possibly one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life.
Mhm.
And yet you have dyslexia. And so that makes you do a few things differently with the words that you're trying to use and the way that you're trying to type. Yet large language models, especially as you can train them to learn you, right? Because your version and everybody's version of a learning differentiation can be learned by a large language model to then meet what the rest of us can understand. That's a supreme power of a level playing field. That's where these technologies can really reach something we didn't see them for before and can unlock learning. I actually think that as they learn you, John, as a dyslexic, or others with other issues in that area of processing language in their own brains, it has a neural network in which it can put things together and create solutions to problems we didn't see. And that's
Yep.
some superpowers. Those are really great things. And that's the power of what, if we do it right with large language models, you as your own Jonathan Marsh language model and others, and then associating them together and looking for problems, super powerful in what we can do. Imagine if you can use that to then boil down and use other technology to boil it down and get to the source. how we can teach people differently.
Oh yeah.
Then it's really transformative.
I do want to throw out a big old asterisk though, because at this point we're talking about it learning you, it learning from you. When you're using it for business, you have to be very careful what you're feeding into it, right? You don't want to make sure that your proprietary information doesn't end up in some massive LLM somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you guys see my LinkedIn post where it looked up Darren's website? That was my favorite one. I asked a simple question like I was like, I can't remember in est how to change this. And I was saying, I asked Chat GPT. It pulls up, I'm watching, it pulls up Darren's website. It reads me back the stuff from Darren. Easily my best thing with it, man. Easily the very best thing. But so I that's how we're using it. What do you think? I got to say, what do you think sort of the software companies and these bigger people that have more data to look through, like I gotta like, what do you think they're using it for? Because I am a little bit disturbed at the amount of stuff that Facebook has that they could say is theirs that they could then train a model on. It's like a little disturbing to me.
So I thought you were going to go like ERP construction, but you went right to Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook's got more data,
I mean, look,
man.
It's the largest data pool in history,
Which is
because
so
if you
pathetic.
don't know it, Trent, did I step on you there? Sorry.
Oh, no.
Okay. They are not only taking in your Facebook profiles and everything you do and all the location and all the messenger. And yeah, okay, we can decide whether or not they're bringing in your audio. They are actually buying up data from multiple different places, including carriers of your cell phone carriers. And they're triangulating it and using it. And they're rudimentary before, but now this does give them a bit of a superpower and more
Yeah.
ability.
I was just going to say we need to have Nick back on for another tinfoil
Yes.
hat
Look,
it's not
episode,
gonna
but it might be
change.
too late.
It's not changing the business mindset or the narrative of these companies, right? I mean, there's still look, it's going to be a way to monetize the data is what they're going to use it for. It's no different than, Google revolutionized search a long time ago. We all know that you could pay money to get your name to the top of a query in Google long before any. I mean, if people want to sell, I mean, if somebody owns data and they want to sell it, the tools to parse it, to
But
package it, to bundle it, hell, they probably can even find a way to price what it's worth. I mean, there's
but
just going to be all it's. I mean,
but
that's going
Trent,
to
I
be
want to challenge you because of your background. So I want your thought on this. It's one thing to do that, but it's another to weaponize it. So think
Yeah,
about
but
the power that this AI gives them to weaponize it in a way that at a pace in which they couldn't do it before.
yeah, I mean, what weaponize it to? I guess I mean, it'd just be a way to accelerate the way they can profit off of it. I don't
The
think
way
they
they could
really
profit,
care
or
what it does to make that. I mean, I think people are under the impression that these places care about your feelings or your your information. So
I
they
mean,
don't.
they don't. But look, we realized really quickly, and this is the world of reality TV, right? Reality TV is negative in its connotation because that sells. Right. We don't cover the feel good stories on our news networks 24/7 because that doesn't sell. Negative news sells. It's what we're drawn
Yeah,
to
it's
because as
voyeurism, man.
humans, it's
Journalism is all
voyeurism.
voyeurism. Yeah.
Right. But think about how that can be used to
Oh
skew
yeah.
things.
I mean, I'm telling you, people, like, please just don't don't put everything on. Do yourself a favor, kids. If you haven't started this yet, don't create Facebook and tell the world your story. It doesn't. You don't need to do that. No, I mean, it's too late for a lot of people. But
I I think what I was more getting at is, I think there's this argument about who owns what in terms of data and privacy, and we have a constitution that's a little different than the other countries in terms of that. We have unwanted, warranted search and seizure laws for our government. Our government's using some of this. I mean, like, I think it's that bigger argument of what is yours that shouldn't be allowed to be. Should they have been allowed to go to Darren's website, give me back that knowledge? Now, if you were a person, read that website and then gave it to me, of course you are. It's out there. It's in the public domain, so to speak.
Mhm.
But you know what? If you're an artist, particularly an artist, you picked a canvas, you picked a medium, you picked a way that you wanted to present your art. And if it represents your art in a different medium, I don't think that's okay. That is actually getting right at the heart of a lot of these objections. Is, I know my wife's a writer. A lot of people are objecting to the writing that's coming out of this. A lot of people are objecting to the visual art, and certainly the commercial artists. I feel bad for them. I mean, you can tell usually what's been created by an AI, but that's only gonna last so long.
Yeah, it's easy to tell now, but
Yeah.
That's why we need those others creating the antithesis for it. We do.
Right.
And it's why, like Elon, stop getting involved in politics and start getting involved in the ability to use these technologies to go against them. Because we need to know as humans what was created by an artificial, and Trent, thanks to you, I'll do this, an artificial intelligence. Because it's not intelligent.
I just
It
don't
is
think it is yet.
artificial.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's LLMs, whatever it is, to call it out so we know, right? We need to begin with the end in mind, as always. And it's just like security. We've got to do that so that we as humans, look, there's also going to be, to contradict all of this, there's going to be incredible art created by artificial intelligence because it was prompted correctly to create it in a way that made it. Like, Jonathan, if you created a software technology through prompting and correcting and prompting and correcting, that's a beautiful artistic method. Same thing can happen. So people who might be unable to use tools to draw or do other things can create something from their minds because they're able to talk to these pieces of software that can help them.
Mhm.
That's awesome. But we should be also able to call out when that's where it was created and how it was created. That's it. I mean, I think ultimately it's the power of technology, and you should just know.
So we have a, when you buy consumer discretionary items, right? You get a tag that says where it was made. Do we need a digital tag of where data came from, or where, I'm being serious. Is there a play where it's like, is there some kind of
might be.
origin statement
might
to
be.
it? Like, this photo was made in the USA by a real author,
Well, and someday we'll be
God.
like, hey, this picture drawn by a human.
Yeah.
It's rare.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be more.
Why would you want that?
Why would you,
That's right.
why would you want that?
Oh, man. Are we going to start calling our programmers artisans? Are we going to have artisan programs?
I won't.
Have you ever dealt with a
no.
programmer? They are artisan, my friend.
Yeah,
I just will
they
tell
are.
you, they draw babies. We, on our side of things, coming from a QA person, it's my job to tell you that your baby is ugly, and I'm sorry, and we have to work through it. And so maybe LLMs will help me somewhere there.
Some babies are ugly. It's true.
Some babies are ugly. Yeah.
So yes, but they're all our babies.
That's right. It doesn't mean they'll be ugly their whole lives.
That's right.
All right, so let's do a little bit of fun because we have, if I'm looking at our timing here, we're getting close to the end. We need to pontificate, right? I need to get out of my own naysayer shoes.
I
So
gotta
do
chat
all of
GPT
you.
what that word means.
Okay, throw it in, and figure it out. What do you think actually in the next 5 years? I'm going to call 5 years. So you go 5 or 3. I need a vote. 5 or 3 years.
Stick with
Go
5.
5.
Yeah.
5. Next 5 years, what are the truly transformative impacts on construction that AI, LLMs, this branch of new technology will truly have on our industry in 5 years? Travis, I haven't given you any time to think about it, so I'll let you give a little bit of time to think about it.
No, I think that the two things where my mind went to were, and they're kind of it's gonna end up rounding out. Obviously, in 5 years, there's not a lot of time rounding out things we've already seen. To go back to an earlier call out about the predictive nature of these tools, there are already softwares out there that are basically looking at drawings and trying to predict how you would build it, right? You're doing that kind of generative work. So I think that will be a force multiplier that we'll see both in probably in the pre-con estimating side, and then through the BIM and detailing work. And I think the second thing that'll help, hopefully help quite a bit, is on the predictive analytics. Hopefully, we can start looking at buildings, taking some of these models and building in the learning and intelligence into them to start to notice when projects are going bad before they go bad. So I think those are probably the two areas where I'm going to see. I think we'll see the most impact. Trent, what about you?
Yeah, I'll take this kind of a road. Um I think it's gonna probably be the nudge that this industry needs to make a few changes based on what people are collecting. I think there's been a number of years now where a lot of larger construction companies, contractors have been collecting data on the work they perform. Um, which is kind of that whole ideas are easy, execution is the heart is everything, right? But they haven't really acted on any of this data. I think that there's a lot of, you know, I in the project management world, there's been a number of years now where they've preached cost coding, and we're learning from how do we, we break our jobs down, we collect this, we collect that. But you haven't seen a lot of action on those numbers. I predict that this will probably be the way to make those actions doable. Maybe like the nudge they need, where that data can now be parsed with a tool that will allow them to maybe have a little more confidence um, in putting together the plan and the actions to actually act on this data they've been collecting. I think that that'll be a big one. And then my second one is I think construction. We see it in other industries too, but I think that this will probably be a death blow to. Oh, I might get in trouble to a lot of administrative positions in the construction industry. Um, yeah, unfortunately. I mean,
Eh,
Or it could
I don't
open
think
them up
that's
to
a
be more
yeah.
meaningful work.
Yeah,
I mean, you get poked for that one a lot, but I think that
Mhm.
yeah.
this is probably the death blow to some of those tasks that have been kind of
Right, just shuffling digital paper around probably isn't going to happen
yeah.
anymore, but
eh, let
hopefully
me
isn't going to
let
happen anymore.
let me ask you, Trent, quick. You don't think those people will lose their jobs? You think they'll do something different
Both column A, column B, probably depending on how willing they are to perform.
or
I
educated?
would
Yeah,
imagine, but
right.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, I'll challenge you. I think they'll upskill, but I also think that's
some
part of our
will, yeah,
industry.
yeah,
I think it's
some will.
part of our industry's focus. We have to think about exactly what you said and think about upskilling those people, right?
Yeah, agree
I
with
don't
that.
know that
I don't
upskilling
think
counts
everyone
though.
will take the challenge, right? That's what
No,
I
they
meant by
won't.
that.
Look,
Yeah,
let's be
yeah.
honest. Some people want to work and
Yeah, I just think that the days of that maybe that job maybe you know,
yeah,
you may need to adapt or learn something different.
that's all
Look,
right.
Right.
it's just the reality of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't make the rules. I just see that being a what happens
Well,
for
yeah,
this.
I'm
I
on
agree.
your side. Before we get to Jonathan, I'm on your side, Jeff. I've been sitting on a credit union board for a while, and when they put ATMs into banks, tellers tripled, and the same sort of thing has happened with retail workers once they put in automated checkouts.
Why is
So
that, Travis? Why is that?
I don't remember the actual, but I think it's because it draws more people in, and they do want the interaction and additional services that the
Yeah, it's
ATM doesn't provide.
quality. It's
Right.
100%
Oh, all
quality.
right.
No, it's 100% quality because those old people that used to go to get their money went to an ATM. Everybody else who goes now to the teller has a much more higher end need that needs the interaction of the person that's there to solve their problem. Right. So low touch used to wait in line for 50 people so they could get $100 in freaking 20s.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now you can go to an ATM and get that, and everybody else could go and ask their question and get serviced and have help. That's the beauty of it. It's the beauty of technology.
I think I am gonna stick to though. I mean, I think that stuff like this will create jobs in some areas,
Yeah.
but there will definitely be
Oh,
skill
yeah.
level areas where it deletes jobs. And I don't know if there will always be a direct translation from the people
It's
that
not going to be one for one for
yeah.
sure.
I think that I just we're
We
gonna
don't
see
have
some of
one,
that.
dude. We don't have one for one in the workforce. Like quantification wise, we don't have one for one in the workforce anyway. That's great.
Sure. Understood.
Jonathan, what you got, man?
Um, I actually, I think I'm going to say that, what it ultimately does is it's a force multiplier for skills. So you can use unskilled labor to now do skilled jobs, which is something you couldn't do before. Also, the people that have skills, I hate to say it, their skills are going to be less valued. You're talking about those administrators making executive decisions. That's cool, except for when the people start believing that the model knows better than those people, because the
Mhm.
model, like, I think we've talked before about data driven versus data informed. Where data driven is, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's actually stupid. Data informed is good. I think this is going to encourage people to be data driven. And that's going to be, I mean, data driven stops innovation, data driven stops a lot of stuff. So I see it making unskilled workers able to work more skilled jobs. I see it taking robots who are zero out of the box skills and giving them decent skills to be useful. Six-way articulated arm is now able to can communicate with a person in a much better way, and we're going to hire a better class of robots as a result. But I mean, I see it as a shift, not necessarily a negative one. I would say that, like Trent said, if you're middle management, if your job is to give the drawings to the engineers from the client, you're going away. But your job should have been to go away before.
Yeah.
I'm a people
And if
person.
you're, yeah, if
Travis, did you really just take us all the way back to Office Space?
I did.
oh yeah, man, that's where I went.
Everybody who watched Office Space knew that guy should have been fired, right? I mean,
That's
are
right.
we really?
Everybody
So-
knew that guy. That guy
I-
exists in every office.
He's in
But-
every office. I know.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna go one step further because I get the chance to jump in because you three went ahead of me. Is I actually think this is the future of our data model. I think the
Oh, yeah.
one powerful thing that the new technology is going to bring to construction is we will eventually find and truly reach our enterprise data model, because to extract the amount of information that we have across the board has been so hard that now the new technology, the LLMs, the other technology available can help us create a data structure to release that information, turn data into information, because I don't believe in data driven decisions. I believe in data informed decisions, because humans know what the hell it is that we want to do. Do you want more beds? Do you want more natural light? What do you really want? Do you want an efficient HVAC system? What do you want? Right now, so many of us don't have good data. So I think it's the opportunity. I'm not saying it's here, but I think in the next remember, I said 5 years. I think in the next 5 years, this is going to help us get there. That's my thought.
My only concern is that people ask really horrible questions of their data right now. Like, I don't think the problem's the data. I think the
No.
problem's the prompt.
That's
No,
I mean, like,
you're
executives
right
don't
about
know
the
how to
prompt.
prompt their own data.
But
I think
hey,
we have a
you're
lot
right
of good data. We just have no idea what to do with it.
No, you're right about the prompt.
Correct.
And Trent, you're right about having good data in disparate systems and in multiple places.
Right.
Oh yeah,
This is
I didn't
I'm
start down that
saying I
road.
think
Yeah.
this is about bringing it all together and then saying, hey, honestly, you ask really bad questions and you don't know anything about what you're doing. Let us tell you what's going. That's why I think that's the future. I agree. And I actually think you guys think it's going to get rid of a lot of these lower level positions. I think there's a number, middle management. I think there's a number of
yeah.
people who think they know a lot of things that are about to get kicked out because honestly,
Oh, I don't
what
think
they
they were safe.
know is
Yeah.
their own bias, and the data will remove bias and inform decision. My opinion.
Mic drop.
All right, we're gonna drop the mic. I'd never do that on my
Yep.
own, but I'm gonna. And this has been episode 79, AI by the Dorks.
AI question mark?